Okay, let's add us in there. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in this time. Today is delay lines and smeared repeats. And I'm Mitch, and I'll walk you through this patch I made today. I uploaded to patch stores if you want to check it out and follow along. Also with me today is Taylor, and as always, Mickey Bones.
Hello.
And yeah, hey everybody. This patch is just to tell you, this is probably the most complicated patch that we've done so far. So we'll see how it goes. And this is what we might make. I might want to go in a different direction as we start patching, but it's like a multi-tap delay with tap tempo. So I can tap in. It's not technically a multi-tap delay because all the delays are clocked with the same source, the same tap. But it's it's multiple repeats, and then I'm using an expression pedal to smear it and choose how much smear I want. And I even made a control page this time. And I'm using diffusers, so we'll get into diffusers and feedback this week and how to use both of those to make kind of reverby sounds. And yeah, I added some feedback in the filter line, a filter in the feedback of the all pass filters to kind of make my attempt at a ghost reverb. So I'm modulating filter, and I think we'll get into it here in just a second. This is the last one I will do for the bootcamp this time around. Next week will be Christopher. And hey, Christopher, I see you in the chat. So he will be hosting next week. And then Steve will be here. Steve will host the final bootcamp, and he'll make a glitch patch. And I'm excited to see what he does too. So yeah, and also last week I discovered that Michael actually he met me before Empress before he started working for Empress, and he doesn't remember it.
But yeah, Mitch remembers it. I don't. I apologize.
That's okay. It was at Velocity, which was a one-time festival in Seattle, and someone in the chat, like the first or second week we did this, Michael said, "Hey, I remember you from Velocity," and I thought they were talking to me. I bet you thought they were talking to you.
Yeah. It's just an odd coincidence, but yeah, we were both there. I was working at a repair shop, and we set up a booth at Velocity because he developed a module for the festival, and Mitch was there because he noticed in my setup I had a bunch of Empress pedals at the time. Before I even considered working for Empress, I was a fanboy for many years, and he remembers the encounter much better than I do, though. It was pretty chaotic.
Yeah, it was. I remember because your case was so unique, and he had like a modular, like a half modular, half guitar setup. It was guitar pedals on the bottom and like a modular in the top of this case. It was cool. But yeah,
I, of course, sold everything as people do and regret it because it was a pretty cool setup.
Yeah, it was a synthesis, but I hope happens again.
Yeah, Christopher's asking what is Velocity. So Velocity was a really cool festival in Seattle. It was half trade show, half musical performances, and they also had workshops. It was really cool, and there were tons of YouTubers and modular companies. I think there was even a couple of guitar pedal companies, and it was just it was awesome. It was kind of brought the fans and the people together, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was probably my favorite festival I've ever been to, and it was not too crazy, not too many people, but busy enough. Were you there, Mitch? Were you there as like a ambassador for Empress, or were you just there for kicks?
Yeah, I had a booth.
Okay.
And I actually, okay, you know what happened? ZOIAs had been sold out at that time, and we didn't have any like ZOIAs left at the shop, and I had like 4 ZOIAs there, like 2 or 3 I was using for demos, and I forgot one of them was my personal ZOIA, and this was like the last trade show I was scheduled to do. So I was like, people really wanted ZOIAs, so I was like, okay, I'll just I'll sell you, if you come back at the end of the show, I'll sell you the demo units that I'm using. And I forgot that one of them was my own ZOIA, and I sold my own ZOIA with all my patches on it to someone and didn't even realize it till like a week later. Yeah, so someone has like a ZOIA out there with all the patches I created for the first year that it existed.
That's cool.
It's funny.
A collector's item, and they don't even know it.
Yeah. I don't even think I backed them up. But then I just make new patches. I don't really save them.
I always try to save mine, but then I end up just like making new ones instead. And
Yeah,
I end up my old ones.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. Okay, let's get into this one. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can get this focused a little better real quick. Good enough. Okay, so I'm going to start over, and I'm going to make a blank patch. The way I would normally do this, I feel like this week's kind of all about like feedback paths, but the way I made that patch that I demoed, I'm gonna cut out a step because it just sounded better the way it worked out. Normally I would put delay lines into diffusers and feed them back into each other, but this is kind of like 2 separate things. So I'm going to try it the way I made the patch that I demoed. So I'm going to move a little faster because there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of steps. Thanks, Christopher. I didn't think you were insinuating that my patches weren't any good. But they probably weren't, actually. They were probably like Christopher's patches that I just edited slightly and called my own. So anyway, so I'm placing an audio in and an audio output on the first page. So I'm going to start over here. Okay. Interface modules, audio input, which I always put at the top there. And then I'm going to put an interface module, audio output, add gain control, and hit done. If I move too fast though, feel free to leave a comment and say, hey, this is going a little too fast for me, and I'm happy to slow it down. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a audio module, audio balance to blend the 2. This is going to be my mix control for the wet and dry. So I'm going to patch the dry signal into the first. I have it in stereo, so the audio in 1 left and the audio in right. And then I'll patch this out to the output. Audio balance left out, audio balance right out, and I'm just pressing them at the same time, like patch cables. And I should have a dry signal now, so I'll just type check. Okay, I hear it dry. So it's good to test that at first, or you might just end up having to go back and troubleshoot. So now that I have my dry signal, I'm going to create my multi-tap delay. Maybe it's not technically multi-tap, but I'm going to call it that because it's connected to the same tap source and I'm going to use clock dividers. We're going to get into clock dividers and dividing them at different times. Let's see. Well, I'm actually not worried about the delay buffer because the effect signal is going to be delay lines, so they'll already be delayed. So I'm not really too worried about phasing. And then when it gets into reverby sounds, I kind of like a little bit of phasey modulation. But you could add a delay buffer. Right now, I'm going to add the delay lines. So I'm going to make this in stereo, and I'm going to add 3 delay lines for each side. So audio modules, delay line, and max time, maybe 4 seconds. I don't think I'll go that high. And then I'm going to turn the tap tempo on. And one thing to note on delay lines that I didn't say when we were making flangers was if I was making a flanger out of this delay line, I can't tap tempo it, or I don't want this set to tap tempo. But if I want to set that flanger to tap tempo, the LFO that is modulating this delay line is what I would want to control the tap with. And that would set the rate, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to start with 1 delay line here, but I'm going to get my signal path kind of planned out before I go any further, because why not just put a delay effect instead of a delay line? Well, there's a couple of advantages to using just delay lines. They don't use as much DSP, and they're more customizable. So to make this into like a full-on delay, we would use a VCA, and we would feed that back into the front end of the delay line. So I'm going to add an audio module VCA, 1 in, 1 out. And I'm just going to connect this up to show you what it sounds like. I'm going to patch the audio input into the delay line audio in, audio out of the delay line into the VCA in. And then the VCA is going to go back into my delay line in. And it depends on kind of what sound you want to go. Like there's so many different ways to go about this. That you could patch this up in a lot of different ways. But I want the first delay line I want the delay line out to go to my wet mix instead of the VCA out. I could patch this VCA out into the wet mix, but then my first repeat would also be controlled by the VCA. This bypasses that. And so now I should have one delay tap right now. And let's see. Yep, you hear 1 tap. And I'm just going to tap a tempo that's faster. Okay, that's all the repeats. So to get more repeats, we would open up this VCA that's feeding back into the delay line. And I'm going to open it up. And we should have, now you can hear that VCA controlling the delay line and continuing the repeats. And the more I turn this VCA up, the longer the decay of that repeat is. Okay, and so that's kind of the way to make a delay line out of, or that's the way to make repeats from just a delay line in a VCA. And the advantage of doing it this way is I can insert things in that feedback loop. Like I could take a filter. You could do this with just the delay line actually too. You would just want to turn the feedback down on the delay line, like the delay effect, excuse me. So if I wanted to add, if I wanted like a tape delay, I could add the tape delay effect module, and then like turn the repeats down, and then add the VCA going back into that module too.
Hey, Mitch, we got a question here. So Thugless is asking, when you're putting two audio signals into a single input, should you scale them down for 100% from 100%, or use a mixer to avoid any digital clipping?
Depending on how loud, yeah, probably. It's definitely something to consider as far as once you're multiplying more than one signal, you're going to get an increase in the volume. Having the audio balance on the first page helps because it's going to at least control the mix there to some degree. But I'm going to be adding more taps. Since these are delay lines, it's not going to be a problem, I don't think. But you might want to turn it down, like connect it at maybe 95%. I would probably just use my ears, and if it was noticeably louder, I would turn the connection down. If say you're doing if I was going direct, say audio input, direct to the output, and then adding, I can show you right now. It doesn't matter. I just want to add a simple effect. So if I was going like this, if I was going audio input directly, I'm not going to patch it all up because I'll mess something up. I'm just going to patch this chorus and turn the mix off. So now I have like a chorus and the audio input going in. I have two signals going into the audio output. And in that case, I would want to turn something down because I'm going to get a volume increase. I mean, it's not really that noticeable, but sorry, that doesn't sound good. But yeah, so I would say it's always something to consider as far as the gain staging and the adding. Anytime you're adding more than one signal to the output or doubling up signals anywhere to one single place, you're going to potentially have a volume increase. And I'm not an expert on how volume scales because it's not a linear scale. But Ben Jordan actually just did a really good video on volume and how we measure dBs and different things. That's really helpful. So yeah, it's going to scale. It's going to curve as you increase the volume. Like two signals isn't going to be like twice as loud, but it'll be louder. And that is really the tricky part about handling the volume is you have to, it's not, okay, I'll put both of these. Since I have two signals going into this input, I'll put both of these at 50%. That's going to be less than, it's going to be quieter. Yeah. And yeah, Christopher has a good point. Look at the connections as dBs and not as percentages. And also don't look at dBs as percentages either, because I have like desire to like look at dBs as percentages of like, okay, I'm going to take this down by half, and it doesn't work like that. So yeah, but good question. Back to our delay line. So now I have my delay line feeding into itself. And the advantage of kind of doing it, is because we could add things into the feedback path. Like I could add a filter into this feedback path, and the DSP is really inexpensive. This is just like it's kind of like building your own custom delay, or it is. But I'm not going to, for the purposes of this, I'm going to stop there. So yeah, as we add the multitaps though, some of them will overlap and they might be louder. So what I want to do now is I want 3 different delay lines. So I'm going to copy them. And connections, I just want the inputs to be the same. And when you copy it, to copy like this delay line, I would hit Shift plus the 2 pages there. And then it asks location of copy. I'm just going to put it underneath it. And then the connections, I can select all. If I select all, then it's going to go into this VCA. But I just want the inputs. There we go. So actually, I don't want the inputs because it connects to the VCA feedback. So no connections is what I should have done, which in that case, it's easier to just add the VCAs. So I have 3 delays, 3 VCAs. I'm going to connect these up again. These delay lines are connected to the left audio input, and I'm just going to connect them to their VCAs and feedback again. And these, now I want to set a tap tempo for this. And if I go to interface modules, where is it? Stomp switch. And left stomp switch, I'm going to use a stomp switch to tap in the tempo of these. But first, I want clock dividers. So I'm going to have all 3 of these delays at different delay times. So on control modules, clock divider. And I'm going to make 3 of them. I'm just going to copy in 3. Now I want to connect them to this stomp switch. Sometimes when I'm connecting a bunch of things to one thing, it's easier to just move that one module and then put it back where I want it. So I'm moving that stomp switch. By pressing Shift plus the move, I can move it, and I can go between pages and move it by hitting the page left and right. And I'm going to connect this stomp switch to all 3 of these clock dividers. I don't actually have to have an LFO or anything else before the clock dividers. And then I want to reset them when I stomp, so they're all in time. So I connected them to the reset switch. And you can see now they're all going at the same tempo, which is 220 BPM. If I want to know what it is, it's 3.6. If I hit the input, it's 3.6 hertz. I can press down on the encoder and tell the BPM. And now I'm going to connect these into the tap tempo in on the delay lines. And to connect them, I just hit the output page over and hit the connection I want to make. And when I'm paging and these yellow lights are flashing, that means I have something selected that I can make a connection to. So hopefully you avoid accidental connections by just remembering that that yellow flashing light is there to remind you can make you're making a potential connection with the next thing you push. If I go over and I see that and I don't want to make a connection on this page, I just push the back button and that's gone. Now I can push anything, and it doesn't make it. It doesn't make that connection. So now I have my tempos, or my clocks, all at the same speed, going into 3 delay lines. I'm going to connect these out to the audio balance. And now they will all. The other thing is, on this, I want to make a control module to change the level output at the same time, because I want all these to feed back at roughly the same level. Actually, what I'll do is I'll hit control module, CV value module. And I want it 0 to 1. I'm going to label it feedback and select done. And now I have a value module that is going to control the feedback of these delay lines. And I need to make sure I biased the delay lines, or the VCAs. I need to close them all. And that's connected. If I press this button on the feedback control, that's connected to all 3 VCAs. So if I open those up, we'll get a lot of feedback at the same time. And there, turn the mix up. There, now you can. And so yeah, now I've got those 3 delay lines at the same time, which is kind of pointless. So what I want to do is use these clock dividers to offset the time and create maybe a more unique, interesting rhythm. And the way I'll do that is changing the dividend and the divisor times. And these are math, so I don't know much about. We might have to pull Taylor in for the math. But basically, the dividend, if you just increase the dividend time, it's going to make the clock faster. The divisor is going to make it slower. And watch out, you can patch into itself. But I'm going to try to divide by kind of odd numbers, so I get different, like, unique variations on the rhythm. So like 3/4, 2/5, and I'll do like quarter notes. So, but yeah, now it has different. You can hear the different timings, but kind of interesting. You can play around with it until you get something you like maybe 311, best band ever. But yeah, so you can mess around with that and kind of dial them in. But I'll just leave it at that for now, for the sake of this demo. Or I'll just.
What's 311? Did you say best band ever? I've never heard that.
I mean, I have no opinion, actually. I'm 311.
Check them out.
The guy
I'll have to check that out after.
Would stop playing Amber the color of your energy every week when I'm trying to buy my bread. But yeah, so the next hour we're just going to play with the time divisions of clock modules. 9. What you need to know is, let's see. Okay, I'm not going to get sidetracked on that. I'm going to go back to this delay.
I'll do my homework after.
What?
I said I'll do my homework after. Don't worry.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, so now it's just going in the left ear. I want to make one of these for the right. So I'm just going to copy this, except for this sound switch. Yeah, I guess I do want to copy this sound switch. So I'm going to copy this whole page, except for the feedback, because I want to make a separate page with just the feedback. So for now, I'm going to move that. I'm going to copy this page. I like to label the pages before I copy them because I know what I'm copying. And it just helps with organization to label your pages, especially if you share them. I think it's nice to have the names on the pages. I think I probably annoyed Christopher on that because I was like, yeah, because Christopher did the ZVU, most of the ZVU factory patches, and I was like, you have to label every page on the factory patches. But I waited till after he'd already done them to tell him that. Sorry, Christopher. So now we have another page of delay lines. And you can see this one's not flashing. It's not connected to anything. So this one is going to connect to the audio right. And I'm just going to, I already messed it up. I'm going to connect that second page. I would probably want to label that 2 for the sake of paging back and forth. So I know that when I'm connecting things on that page, it's 2. So now I think I have the audio in connected. If I press the audio right, and I go to the second page, they're all lit up. I know they're connected. Now I just have to connect them out to my audio balance too. The other thing when you copy pages like this, sometimes it helps just to change the color of a module because I'm paging between pages and everything's the same color. So if like change that to lime, I know it's the second page when I try to connect, or I know it's the first page. So that's all connected. So what I did was I copied the page, and when you copy a page, only the connections on that page are copied. Your pages, so you'll have to go through and make the connections, which is what I did. So I connected just the delay lines back into the audio balance right. And then I want to connect that feedback control. And again, I'm going to move this feedback control by hitting Shift plus Move to that page, and then just connecting all these delay lines. Also, a handy thing is you don't have to take your fingers off if you're connecting something to multiple lines. So I have one finger on the first module, and then I can press all these and connect them real quick once. If you're into speed patching, competitive ZOIA speed patching, it's something we're going to try to get going. I think it'll be entertaining. Like now. Like,
that sounds really stressful.
Next bootcamp. I'm just gonna, yeah. You're committed. If you want to do competitive ZOIA patching, email me to enter the content. So now I'm just copying the clock dividers, which is completely unnecessary because I want to use the same time. I'm going to leave a 4th clock divider. I messed up, but there's an undo. I deleted the wrong clock divider. Shift, undo, boom, they're back. I love the undo feature. I forgot. So yeah, I'm going to delete the second page of clock dividers. There's a 4th. I'm going to change the color of the 4th row clock divider. So I distinguish it from the other ones because technically only 2 are necessary. So I'm going to connect these up like I had the first page. And this is just the reason I'm doing this second page is just to make this stereo. So that's all I'm doing right now. But if I do it exactly the same with the same clock dividers, it's going to be kind of, how can I make it more stereo is what I'm wondering. Well, this clock divider, I could change the dividend or the the divisor. I'll just change the ratio completely, basically. And then I'm going to put my stomp switch. I'm going to move that back to the clock divider page and connect it up to my final clock divider, which is going into the last delay line on the second delay line, page 2. And that should be kind of multi. So now I have a stereo. I want to call it the multitap, but you could probably be like,
Hey, Mitch, your voice is cutting out while the guitar is playing, just so you know.
Okay. So now we have multitap delay. So I feel like that was kind of a lot of information quickly. So we can kind of slow it down and take a couple questions. This is hilarious. I didn't know this. I think maybe the early ZOIA patching, like you had to, so I got in that habit. But you don't have to press shift when confirming save. So I press shift every time. I probably still will, out of habit. But I sometimes I forget there's an undo even. I feel like I'm like Windows 7 with the ZOIA because
You're an old school Zoyan.
I remember like when I first got it, it didn't have any effects, and it was just like all pass filters, delay lines, and like none of these had been added, and I think there was like a sequencer. And like the first thing I did was try to make a reverb out of all pass filters, and delay lines. It didn't sound that good. This one's, but it didn't have a diffuser module either, which is what we're going to get into next. Does anybody have any questions before I get into diffusers? Cool. Well, we'll get into diffusers then. Basically, the diffuser module is, I'm going to load up a picture of one. It's a Schroeder all-pass filter, and it does. I'm trying to talk and look and chew gum at the same time. Basically, it behaves interestingly, and a couple people had questions about like why the gain is, you want to keep it below -3 dB. And here's a diagram of, well, that's not a good one because it actually feeds back. So the all-pass filter, I had a second one, but I'm pulling up. Anyway, the way it works is the diffuser is an all-pass filter with delay samples inside of it, and they're feeding back into each other. The gain also feeds back. It feeds forward and it feeds back. And I have a better diagram of it that maybe I can find later, but I don't want to stall patching. Yeah, the ZOIA just keeps getting better. I think it's like I mean, when I first got it and had nothing on it, it was like firmware 0.04, and then like almost a year later, and it came out. So a lot changed in the beta. It was a really long like beta testing period where a lot changed in it too. And then after it came out, like so much more changed, and it just keeps getting better. And I think it will keep just getting cooler the more stuff is added, and easier to use. You know, now you can label things, you can undo. The first firmware you couldn't do that, so it's pretty cool. Let's get into diffusers. So the way I didn't do this is, and the way if I was redoing this patch is, I would add the diffusers in the feedback path of the delay lines. And I don't think we're going to have time to do that today, but I want to recreate this patch we made by treating the diffusers as almost a separate effect. And the way we'll do that is I'm going to add another audio balance module. So I'm going to disconnect all my delay lines from this first audio balance. And to do this, I'm going to hit the connection, audio balance L, hit Shift plus eyeball, and then I'm going to select each delay line and then delete them. And for speed patching purposes, you don't have to press down on the encoder and hit Shift and delete. You can just hit Shift and delete without pressing down on it to delete those connections. And now this is going to go into a second audio balance. So audio modules, audio balance, it's going to be stereo. And this one, I think will make, this will be the smear control. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a control module. I'm adding my control page values now. This is going to be called smear. Because it's kind of reverb-ish. I wouldn't call it like true reverb, but maybe next bootcamp we can get into maybe we can get deep into reverb, which would be fun and complicated. So, like I said, I'm just moving the module that I need to patch multiple things to that page. So the delay lines are now going into, I'm going to put all these into audio balance 1 left on my first delay line page. Then I'm going to move this audio balance again to my second delay line page, connect it to audio balance right. And now those are going into my second audio balance that decides whether it smears or not. This one is the smear audio balance. So with no smear, we just have those straight delay line taps. Do they work? They don't. No, my ZOIA is muted. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise. Yeah. Okay. Now let's get into diffusers. And you can really get into just tweaking these a lot. I'm going to create kind of a diffuser feedback network. So audio modules, and again, I would encourage you to experiment with this. Yeah, diagram if you want a diagram of this one, I loaded this patch up on patch storage, and I was going to put a diagram in the email, but it's such a big patch. I would encourage you to use the ZOIA librarian to to look at it because I wonder if I can share my screen because the diagram's there on the ZOIA librarian, but it wouldn't. I can't zoom out enough to get everything in one shot of the diagram. So yeah, but I guess I could have broke it down into multiple diagrams because the diffuser network is going to look something like this. I'm bringing up the gain and the size, and then I just want a very small amount of modulation on the diffuser. And then that is going to feed into a effect module. Nope, an audio module. I want a low pass filter. And then I want to modulate that low pass filter. And I'm going to use a sine wave LFO. Sine. And I'm going to connect that to the filter's frequency. And I want it to just slowly kind of modulate. And if I adjust the connection strength, I want it to go pretty slow. And I want it to sweep from maybe like, see, I don't want it to go, I'll set the frequency first because I don't want it to go through some of the guitar's like fundamental frequencies. So about from 600, 500 hertz on, I'm moving that filter, and that's going to go into another delay, or not another delay, another diffuser. And then one more diffuser, and I'm just going to copy that to make it easier. And I'll patch these up. So I've got one diffuser, an SV filter modulated by the frequency filter modulated by an LFO going into a diffuser, another diffuser, and then it's going to go back into itself. So I'm going to add a VCA going to feedback.
And those three diffusers, just to make sure I'm following along, they're just like in series, like one after the other, with the
Right.
filter, I guess, in between those first two.
Yeah. I'll if you have suggestions for wiring diffusers, Taylor, let me know. But
oh, cool. No, that's looks good. I'm
what's
just
up?
making sure I'm following along here.
I wasn't sure if there's like some engineering secrets to
Speed patching with diffusers.
So now I patched this together. I've got one delay line going into, I've got one diffuser, going into a filter. The filter going into a second diffuser, into diffuser number 3, and then into a VCA, which will control the feedback going back into diffuser 1. And it just kind of, I'm not really too concerned exactly what about the settings of these diffusers. You can kind of play with it and do well, it's not working. So now I have that all patched up, and I need to patch it into the delay lines. So I'm going to take that first diffuser into all these delay lines. And the way again, instead of patching between those two pages, I'm just going to move it to that page and speed patch. So all 3 delay line outs are just going to go into the diffuser audio in. And then that diffuser out is going to go into my second side of the smear. It's going to go into the left of the smear control. And now I should have kind of some reverby stuff, I'm going to put this diffuser back because I'm going to want to copy this page. You hear a bit of a difference. Oh yeah. And I'm going to copy that and make a second smear page, a second smear option for the other side. So I'm going to Shift plus copy, and then I'm going to copy it after. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't have to hit Shift. And then this diffuser, I'm going to connect to the second delay line page. So I'm going to move this to this page. And before I do, I want to make sure I connected this. Yep, I connected that right. So I'm just going to connect all these delay lines into that first diffuser. And then that diffuser will go into the left or the right side of this smear audio balance. And we can kind of tweak these, since we have this stereo spread with all these options. If I go to my diffuser page, I'm going to label these diff 1, diff 1, and diff 2. There we go. And then, I can tweak each page to kind of sound different. So the left and right side will have different kind of diffuser. The diffusers will be different, and it will give it kind of more of a stereo spread. I don't know if I even did that on the sample patch. Now I'm going to turn the smear on. And yeah, it's more of a stereo spread there. And the last thing I want to do is hook up whatever this thing's called, expression pedal. So I'll zoom out on the camera, and I've got this mode, what is it, EP3 or EX3? It's the cheap one. It's pretty good. I like it. So what I'm going to add is an interface module, CV expression port, CV expression, CV in. I can't even read it. C port expression in. And I've got, now you can see I can change the value with my expression pedal. It's TRS. It's just a TRS cable. And now I'm going to connect my smear. First, I want to make sure my smear, this value, anything I connect it to is at my desired heel position when I connect it. So now I can smear with my foot, or in this case, my hand. I don't feel like the repeats are as smeared as my example, and I think it's probably, let's try to open up the feedback a little more on the VCA. This is the diffuser's feedback loop. So that will, more steered out. And okay, yeah, I guess Christopher has a thing on the tips and tricks or Jay's recipe for the diffusers. Making reverbs is like kind of the next where you and it's really this is a really fun patch. It's not how I would diffusers experiment with diffusers in the delay lines.
Hey Mitch, your voice is just kind of getting smushed now whenever you're playing. Just
let me
tell you now.
Thanks.
I was about to jump in. YouTube wants to compress you.
I had it was automatically adjusting my volume. I put a stop to that. So one other thing you could really go crazy with like this expression pedal, since that brings us to the max crazy portion of the show. You can really go crazy with connecting the expression pedal to stuff. Like, I could connect it to anything, really. You hear it feeding back. I think I have these a little. I'm going to want to turn those down a little bit because the one thing you do risk with these feedback loops, the ZOIA has a built-in like shut off so you don't destroy your ears, but it's risky. You can get a lot of like feedback buildup and self-oscillation that will just like, if I completely open this up and it's feeding back into itself over and over, the volume's just gonna get out of control. And it's like it's not gonna self-oscillate like an analog delay. But yeah, so let's go with, let's just see what else I can put in this, connect to this, I want to connect it there, expression pedal and make some kind of, I think I want to connect it to the clock dividers, so I want to just bias, I only want to change it a little bit, but I want to change like the divisor from like 311, 313, there we go. And I'm going to change all of these with the expression pedal. So what I would do is just select the expression pedal input. I'm going to put it at the heel, and then select where I want to go. I'm going to select the clock divider divisor input, and then the amount. I wouldn't want to go 100% because it would be insane. But I'll go like 2 or 3%, and then I could test it by pushing down. And then I'm just moving from 3.4 to 3.5, which isn't going to be too crazy. And then this one, maybe I want to invert the next one and slow it down. So what I could do is add an audio module, control module, CV invert. And then connect that to the stop switch. And then I don't want it right there, I want it on the clock page. And then connect that to the divisor, so then I'm slowing this one down. So now it goes to 2.3 and 2 instead of 2.7. And then what else? Got any suggestion on what I should connect this expression pedal to? Okay, I'll just connect it to stuff. I'm going to connect it on the diffuser side.
Maybe you could open up the filters on the feedback or something.
Yeah, good idea. I'm going to open up the filters there. And then I could slightly increase the resonance of the filters. by so I connect that CV expression port in to the CV filter resonance. And I don't want to do it by much because it could oscillate and just sound really peaky and unpleasant. So I'm going to go with like 6%. So it goes from 1 to 1.5. Let's go with like 10%. A little more. There we go. So then,
there it goes.
yeah.
Sounded like cicadas in the background or something.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much, that's it. Yeah, I wanna, yeah. The Christopher's right. You know, you want to turn the volume down when you're messing with feedback loops, and that's really what all this patch is a bunch of feedback loops. So be careful with your ears, and I almost don't want to risk it anymore on a live stream. I mean, I can always shut it off. Michael,
I'll just mute you.
Will you, have your mouse on the mute button?
I'm ready.
And then we can. Okay. I think I fixed it. It's pretty weird. That's not even with the diffuser. Right there. It's like anything over 90, it's just not happening. But yeah, fun. Yeah, I think that's where we'll stop today. But thanks everybody for coming and following along. This one was probably my favorite to do because it's one of those effects I don't think you could make with much of anything else. Like if you were to try to do something like that, it's hard. But there's a lot of room for making that effect. Thanks for, I'm glad you guys like this effect. I feel like there's a lot of room for making it better. So, yeah, I encourage you to try it out. You can download this one on Patch Storage now, so try it out. And if you make some improvements to it, send it in to me. I'd love to check it out. And yeah, I think I'm really happy where this bootcamp has taken us so far. I'm glad you think it's the best one yet, because I feel the same as far as the effects. And the ZOIA is such a, once, I feel like at this point, if you've followed along so far, yeah, that you can make some really cool effects it's feeding back. It's muted, don't worry, but
I see it getting squirrely down there.
Yeah. So yeah. Do you guys have anything else to add in here, Taylor? Mickey Bones?
Nothing else on top of that now. But yeah, this is cool. I'm excited to. I didn't actually build one of these patches before this too, so we're gonna do some noodling around with it after.
It just sounds so beautiful.
Keyboard into the ZOIA a lot more, so I'm gonna try that with the delays. Even just before this, I started. I was like, oh, I'll do get a complex kind of delay going. And I just put down like one delay line and played a note, even just that. Sounded cool. I just stuck with that for a few minutes. So I'm gonna come back and kind of build what you had.
Yeah, I would also check out tips and tricks. The secret is, I know Christopher has a diagram in there for like an actual multi-tap, like a way to do multi-tap, because this is there's one single tempo controlling all those clock dividers. So I guess you could call that a multi-tap. But you could do a real multi-tap like the one that's on the ecosystem where you can tap two completely different tempos. And I think that's in tips and tricks. I think if you're stumped on anything, it's probably in tips and tricks. And I would I would search the document, like Command or Control F, I think is what brings up the search in a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to find like your specific thing in it. It's super helpful. I didn't. Yeah. So there's different things you could change about it, about the patch, and different ways you could kind of make the same kind of or a multi-tap delay. But yeah, plucky make synth keyboard sounds, I think, are really fun with delay too, Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did earlier with even just a classic electric piano sound, but just with like the right, I don't know, yeah, it almost makes it sound like a synth whenever you get the right delay and filtering on it. It's nice.
Oh, cool. All right, what are you running through it?
I have this like Korg, not M1. I forget the name of it. M50, I think.
It's like an
It's just
electric
like an
piano,
older, like, it's like an old Korg workstation. Not old. I don't know how old it is, but
okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been using most. I've been coming back to it recently. I feel like the last year or two, I did a lot more just like using it as MIDI. You're just using like sounds in like Logic and stuff. But more recently, I've just been running that like, through a bunch of pedals and just using it sounds. So
cool.
Be fun.
Yeah, right on. Cool. All right. Well, next week, come back next week. I think it's an important it's a good subject, which multi-effects switching and ordering your effects, and I think maybe Christopher will get in more like as far as the gain staging and accounting for like multiple. I don't know actually if he plans to do that or not, but accounting for like multiple effects in parallel. So that's really if it's running in series, where it's just one effect into another, you don't really have much to worry about as far as like the gain and it just being too loud. But yeah, when you're running things in parallel, which is I think a better way to run a lot of effects is in parallel, but unfortunately you have like pedal boards that you just run one effect into another, unless you have something like that that patchulator,
right? But even that, it was all kind of series. You could just easily switch the route. I mean, you could set it up however you want, but how I generally used it was I had all my pedals in series, and then I would just change the order of the effects. But I guess you could like split your guitar signal into multiple pedals and then send it to like a mixer. Yeah. If you didn't have a ZOIA. I'm guessing everyone here has a ZOIA, but that's not the route guitarists usually go.
Yeah, and you can get a lot, like you can get better tones. You can get better tones in parallel.
Yeah, and it's nice because you can just dime all your effects to totally wet and then bring the different levels in. Yeah. And it gives it, more opportunity to shape things and less weird buffering stuff, and it simplifies things and complicates things kind of simultaneously.
Right. Try parallel mixer, Christopher says, or Boss ES8. Yeah, those are good options.
That's true.
Also, the gig rig, I think, would be a good one. I think I'd probably get that if I was going to. Because yeah, sometimes I want serial, sometimes I want it in parallel, and so something like that would be, I think, ideal. But like the ecosystem, you can do both. You can do either parallel or serial, but I think like when I first got it years ago, I wasn't realizing like how it got louder in parallel, and I was like, why is it doing this? And I'm like, oh, it's because it's doubling the signal. But not the volume. Anyway, yeah. So, Christopher, if you got 1 hour next week, and then we cut the power. Not really.
Says Mitch at hour 1.
Yeah,
I'll just
I think it's time to cut the power. Why didn't you cut the power on me yet, Taylor?
I'll just
I don't
click
control
and
that.
broadcast.
Oh, I could hit end broadcast.
You can. So, yeah, I think at this point I'll probably just click in broadcast. So, yeah, thanks everybody for coming, hanging out.
Bye, everybody.
It's been real fun.
See ya.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions, or if you make a new patch, shoot me an email, and we'll be back next week.